Hi, welcome to episode 7 of the Real Estate Speedcast. My name is Nancy. I'm here with Juan Castro, Greater Orlando Realtor, with special guest Chad Talbot from Central Florida Home Inspections. I almost said Central New Jersey, just kind of was going to come. So I met Chad probably 2 years now. 2 years?
Um, it's actually yeah, just March of 23.
Wow. So just 2 years ago, from a mutual customer that hired you to do a home inspection, I was using somebody else and I said, oh my God, this guy's amazing. Since then, I don't know how many home inspections you've done for me, but probably 99% of my customers have used you. So
Yep, and I know it's roughly about, I believe it's about 80.
about 80. Okay, so that makes sense. So
Yeah,
80 buyers in 2 years. Yeah, that makes sense.
it's about right. Yeah.
So tell me how or tell us how you got started being a home inspector.
So my background ever since I was, started working 17, 18 years old, I did construction. So, a good 20 years of construction, renovation, remodeling, flipping houses, all that stuff. A lot of hard work. I didn't really love doing it, especially the last 10 years of it. So then my wife became a realtor, which I'd been telling her for many years because even when she wasn't a realtor, she's always online looking at houses. So she finally decided to become a realtor. Then I got to be the one that was dealing with the home inspection side of stuff with making repairs for buyers and sellers and um, just seeing reports. And a lot of times it was just really poor home inspections
Mm-hmm.
and very confusing reports and just got me thinking, man, I think I could do quite well at this. And I think I would like doing it much more. So, I believe it was in May of 2021. I quit doing any other work and fully started the schooling on home inspecting. I figured it was going to be simple. I've been doing in the industry for 20 years. It's going to be easy.
Yeah, of course.
It wasn't that easy. I learned that a lot of what I was doing for 20 years was wrong. But so I started the schooling process, got my license. I got licensed in August of 21 and started my business. Rode around with multiple inspectors just to learn because you can know what you're looking at, but putting it on a report so it's easy for the client to understand and to relay the information to clients. That's a whole nother side of it. Um, so that was one thing I really focused on was I wanted to make the reports super simple for the buyer.
Yeah, and
And
they
that's
are.
why, I do so much pictures. Yes, my report's going to be 60, 70, 80 pages, and it's going to have 250, 350 pictures, but you just go right through. It's going to be very easy to understand. You
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't have no questions. And it also protects us all when they call, with a water stain. Oh, we moved in and there's a water stain on the ceiling in this bathroom. Well, we can go right back to the pictures, and I've either commented on that it was tested and it was dry, or it wasn't there.
Right.
Because
And
in
that
one of
happens
those
after
pictures,
the home inspection before closing, anything could happen.
right.
Yeah. Juan, you have questions?
Well, the only thought I have is I've normally told my buyers, the purpose of the home inspection is to confirm the house is what you believe it is and that there isn't any surprises. Can you speak to some of that on some of the surprises that you've seen that people would not really ever know about if someone without your expertise did not go there?
I mean, yeah, those could be endless.
Yeah.
Definitely recently I had one I inspected, and going into the attic, the ductwork had just been destroyed by rodents.
Oh, okay.
So, and from inside, you really couldn't tell, like at the AC vents.
Yeah.
They look pretty clean, but I'm sure somebody very recently cleaned them all up and did some painting and stuff. Um, so I seen the amount of mold growth from where the ducts were damaged. And then I went inside and pulled off a couple of vents, and the mold growth was just some of the worst I've ever seen inside the ductwork. And you get that when you get that cold air inside the
Yeah.
ductwork in contact with the hot air from the attic, it's going to create condensation and mold. So that, and a lot of times just find major leaks using thermal imaging. And another one I just had recently, there was a major leak above the garage and above a bathroom that the seller had repainted the ceiling, so you could not see anything.
Mm.
They
But I,
closed it and just repainted it and they won't know.
right.
Yeah, that's what you would think. They won't know. Now, there's a few reports that insurance companies are going to require to get to insure the property, which we always recommend. But in order to finance a property, they absolutely will need insurance. So what reports do you do that have to go to the insurance company?
That's going to be the 4 point and the wind mitigation. And the wind mitigation is just a documentation on building features at the time the home was built, or updates like a new roof that's been done. And it's really just how they believe the home will stand up to wind resistance, along with, current building code. So it helps gets discount. And then you got your 4 point, which covers the roof, the electric, plumbing, and HVAC, which it's all very basic as far as, for the most part. Like with electric, it's just the electric panel. So it's not, every wire
Right, you
receptacle,
can't get behind
light.
the walls to see anything else behind there.
Right. And that's one thing that I always, try to, because occasionally, you get people that are buying a home. I had one yesterday that they're buying a home. I believe it was built in 1954. It was the 50s. And they just want to do a 4 point wind mitigation. And I told them, you know,
Yeah.
this is what I would charge for a full home inspection with a 4 point wind mitigation. But for a 4 point wind mitigation, I won't do that. And I highly recommend against it. And I used to do 4 points and wind mitigations whenever somebody, if that's all they wanted, but you tend to get a lot of negative phone calls, emails, and text because they move into the house and you know find whatever the stove doesn't work.
Mhm.
Right, but you
That's not
didn't,
part of
I
the
had
4
one
point.
customer that you helped me with that did that, just a Winsmith and the 4 point. And then when we got to the walkthrough, the last time we did this, my dog was barking. Today he got a squeaky toy. I just want to point that out. So, he always finds the best times to make noise. He's been quiet all day. But when we got to the walkthrough, he was asking about the garage door opening and closing right, and the doorbell not being there or not working. I'm like, you didn't inspect any of those items. Now we're at closing and you only wanted that 4 point. Now there's nothing I can do.
Right. That was Davenport.
Yeah, you were, yeah. Yep,
Yeah.
certainly
I
were.
don't, I work very hard, um, and do a very thorough inspection to make sure that the buyers know exactly what they're buying. So when I get a call about something not working or somebody goes against a recommendation, yeah, you remember it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So now I've mostly there are maybe some exceptions, but for the most part, if it's less than 10 years old and all they want to do is a 4 point wind mitigation, then I'm fine with that. But if it's more than 10 years old, because that's when you really start to get to where systems
Yeah.
are just old. even
Right.
though they're still and they're old, you need to be prepared that you're about to have to spend $7,000 on a new AC system. And a 4-point doesn't tell you that.
Yeah.
Right, right. The general inspection is gonna go through all of those items. And they are very thorough. And I tell my customers, they're like, do you have a home inspector that you recommend? I said, yeah. I said, and when I buy a house, Chad is gonna be the only one that's gonna inspect it, so. And they say, okay, call them up. I said, all right.
And
Yeah.
Chad, how much lead time do you need whenever you're going to perform an inspection? Like for us, we're trying to negotiate inspection periods and stuff like that. So in your experience, like what's the amount of time we should be getting, and how long does it take you to perform a traditional home inspection and things like that?
So I would say as far as scheduling goes, it really varies. So one thing I would say to try to be aware of is, um, just the market. So if it's, especially like November, December, January, especially early January, you know, 5 days is typically no problem. Um, it starts to get to like now, I mean, I would say, since mid-January, I've been really busy, but 7-day inspection period has been no problem. Now
Okay.
it's got the last 2 to 3 weeks. It's got like right now, my next available is next Thursday. So we're a week
Okay.
out. So I booked 5 inspections a day. Two, I had to turn the date that I gave them. I even booked two of the ones I did book for Sunday.
Yeah.
So, and I also try to um, keep the weekends open. Like if somebody calls me from Google, I won't schedule that for a weekend because when Nancy calls me and the only availability that I have is Saturday or Sunday, that's where it's going to go.
Thank you. That makes sense. That makes
But
perfect
yeah, I would
sense.
say once it gets busy, and busy times of the market or the year, then definitely trying to do like a 10-day, even if you can get away with a 14-day. Obviously 14 is always going to be plenty. But usually 10 days is good. And Nancy will tell you if it's 7 days, I'm gonna make it happen.
That makes
So
perfect
I
sense. And
usually,
then
before I have a contract back signed, I know I'm getting it, right? So I text Chad the address, how much is
get
it to
ready.
be, and when are you available? We did that the other day. I said, okay, just hold Monday at 1 o'clock. I'm waiting for the contract back. So I'm always ahead of even getting that offer accepted.
Perfect. And Chad, so the home inspection is basically for the buyer's comfort, right? Whenever they're going to try to determine if the house is acceptable or not acceptable. But are you also checking things that might come up if the buyer was doing a VA or FHA loan, where you might find things that could be solved before that appraiser goes in?
Yes, I will. So yeah, if I know if it's a VA loan, for one, I'm going to be doing a WDO and termite inspection because they're going
Okay.
to require it.
Yeah.
So the buyer is already going to know, yeah, if there's anything wood decay, termites, whatever on that WDO, that's going to have to be taken care of because we need a clear
Gotcha.
WDO. Um, and then, and that's why I like to call the buyers and get the report to them the same day, give them a chance to look at it. Then I'm going to call them and go over it with them because one, I don't want them to make a big deal out of something that's not. Um, you could have all the kitchen receptacles not working, but it could just be that $10 GFCI plug. Um,
Hmm.
or a double tap breaker. A lot of inspectors, the way they comment on a double tap breaker, you would believe your house is going to burn down.
Yeah.
it's $100 repair for an electrician typically to come and repair it. So I don't want them to make a big deal out of something that's not. I want them to have a clear understanding, but at the same time, I want them to understand the significance of an issue when they need to. I had one that had some severe cracking on the stucco on a 2-story house. So it was up around the second story part where it's wood backing behind it.
Yeah.
So the cracking, the normal minor stucco cracks that were there got left unattended for years. So the wood in behind it starts swelling and it starts pushing your stucco off the house.
Mm.
They weren't too concerned. They figured they'd just get the house painted, be good to go. And it's way beyond that point. They were looking at, I would estimate, around $30,000
Yeah.
for this repair. So sometimes they need to understand how bad it is. Sometimes it's not a big deal. But I also have to be careful too, because I've seen many situations where, something that would be a big deal to me is not a big deal to them, or vice versa.
Yeah.
They're worried about the ceiling fan that doesn't work, but not concerned about the AC system that's barely surviving and it's 20
Yeah.
years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, I learned that with a lot of things. Even when we're showing houses, right? What's important to me is completely different than the buyer. It's weird.
Right.
But what I love about when you talk to my buyers is it's not over alarming. Like you said, unless you have to over alarm them, like you have to back out of this. There's no way, right?
Yeah. And well, I'm never going to say that.
No, I know that, but
Anyway, I just want to make sure that they know what they're in for. I had one just recently where the home, it needed some things. It probably needed $25,000 to $30,000 worth of things, but it was insurable. The roof was like 10 years old, so it was insurable. But the house was listed at least $100,000 under value. So it would have been a great investment.
right, yeah.
I ended up inspecting another one for that buyer about a week and a half later because, some people ain't looking for an investment. They want to move in ready home and they don't want to have to do all that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Any last bit of advice when doing your home inspection? Besides, you must always do a home inspection.
No, I'd say, and I know you'd asked about as far as how long. I mean, typically for me, a home inspection is 3 hours. Obviously it goes up, for bigger houses, it goes up. Sometimes I have an inspection that I think is going to take 3 hours and it takes 4.5 because there's so many problems. More problems means more reporting and sometimes investigating to, not that I have to determine, like with that roof leak, not that I had to determine where the leak was coming from or any of that, but I want to know, is there more? I'm looking for other damage. And like on that particular one in that home where it was above the bathroom, it had very significant damage it was a concrete tile roof. I couldn't even believe the tiles weren't falling into the attic. And the house was only 5 years old.
Wow.
So yeah, and it was a part of where I found it. Like if I didn't use thermal imaging, I would have missed the leak because they painted the ceiling, so I wouldn't have seen it. And the part of the location it was in the attic, I would have never went, and I had to almost crawl under and over ducts and stuff to even get to that part of the attic. So I would have never seen it. So definitely being thorough, but yeah, inspection usually about 3 hours.
Makes sense. So you can do the home inspection, the termite inspection, the 4-point inspection, What other inspections can you do while you're there doing your visit? Do you do pool inspections too, or does a pool guy does that, or?
I do pool inspections. I'm looking at, everything with the pool as far as, electrical, plumbing, pumps, equipment. Um, don't really test pool heaters because obviously a pool heater, as far as if it's just heating a pool, that's going to take a day.
Yeah, yeah, you'll just test it to see that it fires up and
Right. I'm checking to make
yeah,
sure. Now,
yeah,
if there's a hot tub there, I'll go ahead and heat that up because that'll heat up in a short amount of time. And
sure,
we can
sure,
know for sure that the heater is functional. Uh,
sure.
but yeah, and I include pools. We have so many pools in Florida. I just decided when I started that I wasn't going to charge extra for pools. It's just going to be, this is going to be my price. If it has a pool, I'm going to inspect the pool.
Well, that's fantastic. And then I guess my last question is solar panels. Is there a way to test solar panels besides looking at the meter?
No, you
Okay,
can't even test them by looking at the meter because
okay, okay,
there's no meter. The meter is tied into the grid with your power.
okay.
They're really um the only way I would
Is
say
the app, the customer's app or their devices when they're tracking electricity input and output, right?
right, and that should track input and
Yeah,
output and stuff. But really, I always when there's solar, there's a comment that goes on my report, that everything appears to be in satisfactory and functional condition.
yeah.
But I recommend getting, 3 months, the last 3 months of electric bill.
Utility bills.
That's what's going to tell you if it's working. Because if
Yeah,
they're getting electric bills for $200, $150, either the system's undersized or it's not working.
yeah, yeah. No,
And
that
the
makes
roof
sense.
solar panels, are you able to inspect the roof thoroughly when there's solar panels on there?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely can because I mean I can get down on my hands and knees and
Yeah,
use a flashlight and look underneath. But typically, uh, you're the shingles underneath the panels. Even if the roof and the panels have been on there for 15 years, the shingles underneath the panel are typically going to be in better shape than any others or similar.
Yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, I can see under there if need be. The main thing, we're really looking at is the panels themselves. Are they damaged, broken? A lot of times people live on golf courses.
Oh, we had
oh,
one with
yeah.
a golf ball through it in Champions Gate that you did for me. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Seen many of them. I had one that had like 15
Hits on it.
damaged spots from golf balls. It's like, you
Yeah,
Yeah.
but and then looking at the connection points where it connects to the roof and the seals, and then looking in the attic, where they're mounted because if the seals are bad or it's not done right, then water starts leaking in and corroding the decking. So yeah, it's really as far as solar goes, it's very minimal as to what you can really see and determine. So you're really just looking to make sure there's nothing unsafe,
yeah.
damage, stuff like that.
Well, it's good to know because so many homes are getting solar now. I know I have my sellers, show buyers the app or transfer the apps over before closing when we do the walkthrough, just so people can see it's performing like it's supposed to, just like when they check services when they come over. But that's really good to know that you're able to check all the connection points because that's where the roof's going to leak if it's going to leak when they drill those
Right.
holes in and seal those panels onto the roof. So that's good to know because I don't think a lot of people think about solar panels. Um, so that's very, very helpful. Well, obviously, we're super thankful for your expertise and what you do because you're the buyer's protector, right? You're just trying to give them a good opportunity to know exactly where the home is, and then the buyer decides if they're able to proceed or not proceed the way it is.
Right.
Makes perfect sense.
We're gonna
Yeah.
put your contact information on this video too, so if anybody wants to. If you're not using me or Juan, which you should be, but if you're not and you want to use Chad, you can.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And then, yeah, and as far as the services go, I pretty much do everything except for septic. Septic, they
Yeah,
need to bring a
Yeah,
truck and empty it. But yes, I do WDOs. I do water testing for wells. I do mold analysis. If it's a manufactured home and they're using BAFHA, I do the engineered foundation certifications. So pretty much anything that they're going to need except for septic.
now what about, and I know the answer to this, but we have a 4-point and repairs need to be done. And we need to update the 4-point. Will you go back to the home?
Always.
perfect,
And most of the time, I'm not going to charge.
Yeah,
Yeah,
perfect.
that was another thing, and part of that, what was helpful for with my wife being a realtor, because I did notice that when there would be an inspector have to go back, then it was usually my wife, it's usually the realtor that ends up, okay, he's going to go back and check, and it's going to be $100.
Yeah,
So I I like to not have to put that onto the realtor. So yeah, if at all possible, I don't charge for
yeah,
returns. There are situations where it's an hour and a half and away, and they can't wait a few days until I'm going to be in the area. They need it, like they're trying to close in 2 days, so they need it like today.
yeah,
Um, I made a trip like that last night at 8 o'clock last night to the Villages.
yeah. So
that's
just a
far.
light trip charge for something like that, just so you can
Right,
get there. Yeah,
right.
perfect.
I have a dog fighting with me, biting my hands right now. You're wondering why I'm moving around the previous speed. Um, let's see, any other questions? One?
No, I mean, I
Yeah,
think we kind of got it figured out. I mean, we know that Chad is the protector. He'll go in the first week to 10 days, give or take a little bit. Just make sure the house is where the buyer wants it to be, where it's acceptable or not acceptable. The buyer decides. Um, it's really helpful that you can do such a wide range of services with one person. So you don't have two, three, four inspectors going at different days, different times. That's
Right,
very intrusive to the seller. So it's kind of nice to just get it in, get the visit done, slip out 2, 3 hours, give or take, and then get a report within 24 hours. So that's basically what Chad does for us.
yeah.
Super thankful for
He's
your
never gonna
expertise
get
and your
somebody else,
experience.
well, unless he gets too big, but we're always,
Yeah,
you're always gonna have Chad personally doing it, which I love.
yeah, yeah. So thank you so much, Chad, for sharing what you do for us. Because some buyers just don't really know how intensive it really is. I mean, the reports you said are 60, 100 pages.
right.
So very a lot of documentation in there. Um,
And what's
really
nice
good
about
resource to
Chad's
go
reports
back.
is the first few pages are what's wrong, right? The summary of it is kind of grouped in the first few pages. So if you,
Yeah,
like for me, if I just want to take a quick glance, I'm on the road from my phone to say, okay, what happened with that house? And I can just look at the summary and know that, we're in pretty good shape.
yeah, yeah. And then you can
Chad, how'd
reflect
that
to the
go
main
today?
report.
Yeah. So if
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you don't have
Then you
time
look
to
at the
just
main report for all the details.
exactly.
Right.
Makes good sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and anything that um, needs to be addressed or is not functioning as intended, stuff like that's all going to be on the summary. Doesn't matter how minor it is. Cosmetic, if it's purely cosmetic, if you got a cracked tile, a typical cracked tile in a living room, it's purely cosmetic. That's not going to be in a summary. You have a
Yeah,
cracked tile right next to the bathtub, that's going to be in the summary. It's a wet area.
yeah,
The doorbell don't work. that's minor, but it'll be in the summary. Again, that's another thing that doorbell that doesn't work might not be a big deal to me, but it might be to the buyer, especially
Yeah.
if they just bought this $300 doorbell camera that they're going to put on, but it has to have a working wire.
Yeah.
So yeah, if it needs to be addressed or is not functioning properly or a safety issue, any of that type of stuff, it's going to be in the summary.
All right. Very good. That's gonna wrap up episode 7, I think. So thanks, everybody.